Hey, welcome back to the Nonprofit Leadership Studio. Nice to have you guys. A great guest tonight. Don Titcombe is here from the Rockwell Foundation. We're excited to have him. Don, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing good.
Very good.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, what's your official title out there at the Rockwell?
I'm Senior Program Officer for the Rockwell Fund, Inc.
Rockwell Fund, Inc.
Yeah.
Very good.
Because
in my mind, I thought your title's like Big Cheese or something like that.
No,
so it's just
Little Cheese.
Yeah. So give us sort of the elevator speech of Rockwell Fund. I mean, when people come to you and say, hey, what do you guys fund? What do you tell them?
Sure. Well, Rockwell Fund, we're a family foundation, yet we're a little bit unique in the sense that we don't have any more family members on the board. So we have all community members, most of which have experience in finance, but then we also have a lot of experience on our board for people who've worked in nonprofits too. So it's a really neat board, very diverse. And we used to be a foundation, a type of foundation. First of all, we give away about $3.4 million a year.
Yeah.
And we used to be the type of foundation that gave out like hundreds of $20,000, $10,000 grants. In fact, we had 3 program officers back in the day, and now we only have 1, which is me. So they went through kind of a strategic planning, and they narrowed down their focus. And we have a few major areas, which is supportive housing, workforce development, education, and health. Within education, we focus on middle school dropout prevention. Within health, kind of like women's health, and kind of strategic responses to large health problems in the region. Supportive housing, pretty self-explanatory. We have a focus on permanent supportive housing for chronically homeless folks. And workforce development, difficult to employ populations.
Well, so it's very specific.
We're very specific.
And a lot of foundations aren't like that, right? I mean, in
Correct.
terms of the
Yeah.
work. But wouldn't you say more are moving towards trying to sort of scope out sort of specific areas?
Yeah, in general, I'm not an expert, but what I see just by my colleagues around me, people are moving more towards strategic responses to problems, and because of that, it kind of it makes them narrow their focus.
Yeah. So one of the questions that we like to ask people here, Don, is, if you're writing a book on fundraising, what would some of the chapters look like for you?
Okay, well, to be funny,
Always be funny?
I love development people, but I'm going to make some jokes. I mean, I think I would call one chapter Leave Me Alone, just because I understand the relationship building process, and I understand that, they have a job to do. But I think one thing that gets left out a lot for development folks is kind of a resistance to respect the process of each foundation, which, just like the nonprofits have their own process and their own philosophy, and they probably at times feel annoyed with foundations trying to tell them how to do their job.
Exactly.
Foundations sometimes they put some thought into how they want to receive requests and why they do the work that they do. And when professionals kind of don't respect that process or try to work around it or don't take no for an answer the first time, that can really, really stain, I think, for a long time. So
is your group one of the, because I know there's some foundations that are very sensitive about going to the trustees, right? Going to the board of trustees outside of you. Are you guys sort of sensitive to that? Are you sensitive?
We don't recommend it.
Yeah.
And that would be a follow the process type thing. Because if it says on a foundation's website, solicit us in this manner, and you don't, you better really have a close relationship with that trustee. I mean, you better, because it puts them in an awkward position, and
because they don't want to be contacted.
And then it makes the program officer, who's really going to be the person you're working with and whose recommendation you want, maybe feel a little slighted. I mean, I don't, I don't personally get offended. I understand where people are coming from, but other foundations, I have heard stories.
Yeah. Other chapters.
Stop asking me to dinner, basically. or let me put it this way. Okay, the fundraising events that nonprofits do are very important for the nonprofits. I understand it brings in money, and I understand that they want to share what they're doing with their funders and even their non-funders because it's a way of courting funders. I get it. But on the other hand, if program officers went to one of these things, went to every one they went, I mean, I would have to eat these rubber chicken meals every day.
Yeah.
Some of them are actually really good.
Yeah.
So I guess my question, I guess what I would say is don't take it personally. We can't go to all of them. And the reality is we're probably not going to write you a check because,
Because we invited you to dinner.
Well, I can't write you a check
Yeah.
because first of all, it would be a little bit unethical for me to be,
Yeah.
just like doing that. And secondly, I just don't have the money. I mean, I don't know how much other program officers get paid, but I don't get paid enough to write $1,000 checks
Right.
at events. So really what I'm doing is taking up a spot that you could be using to bring in some money.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I think most program officers, at least at foundations like mine, got their job because they're strategic thinkers and they, or they know something about the problem that they're working on. So, the show that you're putting on for single donors probably isn't going to apply to a lot of program officers, if that makes sense.
So it's interesting, right? Because we hear from so many. So if we had a director of development here, they would say, develop those relationships. But people almost have to figure out
who they're dealing with.
Yeah, and what's going on. And so many people, especially when you're starting off, you think, well, if I buy them lunch, they're bound to come to lunch. But the fact of the matter is, well, even in my case, we're at lunch plenty of times. We don't need people to buy us lunch, and maybe it'd be more interesting without other people, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that the fundraisers are important and relationship development is important. But I would say my gut tells me that that's a more important process for private donors and very, very small family foundations, whose probably their personal identity is intertwined with their giving.
Yeah.
My personal identity, like, not intertwined with that.
Right.
I'm doing a job.
Right.
I've been given tasks to make progress on certain goals. So, I don't need the, I guess, the upliftment that those events try to channel. I try to go to basically 3 or 4 a quarter.
And you're invited to probably 5 times that many, right?
I mean, yeah, just
At
blindly.
least.
I mean, not like we got to have Don there, but just they just come in because we're on the mailing list.
One of the things that we've seen a trend in the last couple of years is this idea that foundations really like the idea of being thought partners, right? It's not just a matter of writing a check now. How important is that for you to be thought partners with some of the organizations you like to fund?
It's a great question. We struggle with trying to figure out where we should be on that, because I do think it's really important to, just because I represent this $3 million doesn't mean I know anything more. I probably know very, very little about a lot of children's issues compared to you, per se, right? So what's the level of appropriateness for just inserting myself into thought partnership? At the same time, I need to be transparent about the goals of the foundation. And so I think there are opportunities where I wouldn't be thought partnering with you to tell you how to do your job, but consulting closely to say, like, we're aligned, we're not aligned. So for instance, I do happen to know a lot about school discipline reform, because we even talked about that together. And we're heavily involved in a process related to that. But there's other things like workforce development where we fund collaborative efforts, but we're not participating in them. So, like, we're funding an effort with the ARC of Greater Houston to work on workforce issues related to people with disabilities, intellectual disabilities. That's not an area of competence for me, but we do think it's important. So I'm not really at the table there because I don't have much to add.
Yeah.
But, I'm not sure if I'm answering the question.
But you're
right.
sort of self-aware, right? I mean, you know your strengths. And
not everybody is.
I sometimes feel like there's foundation people who, because they have the ability to write checks, they feel like they're a little bit of an expert, and they love the idea of me saying, I'd love for you to be my thought partner on children's issues, right?
Yeah, and I think that a lot of times it's like power without knowledge can be really dangerous, because they come into the room and they can say, well, I really think we should do this. And it's like, if you say no, you're basically risking your funding. And I think that's a skill, that kind of soft skill about how to have that conversation with the funder, and like, and organizationally, when you have to say, like, we just can't do it with this funder. It's not worth it.
I do think that's a skill, and I think it's almost maybe a skill that I haven't developed, because I'm happy to tell them why they're wrong, and which is probably the wrong thing to do, right?
It depends.
Yeah.
It depends. I think part of it is measuring where you're at on the food chain too.
No, but believe me, my director of development who doesn't like the idea that I would tell people, I want to get back to, where you're from and then how you got to where you are. You're from Philadelphia originally?
I am.
And where'd you went to UT though for undergrad?
Undergrad.
How did that happen? How did that?
So I was a pretty lost youth. Didn't go to college right away. I got a job and traveled the country and decided that because of that experience, I just thought I would like to study American culture and history. So I got interested in American studies. And it just so happened that the community college I went to was really good in American studies. So it was a really good experience. And so I decided I wanted
And where was that? Where was the
That was
community?
Bucks County Community College.
Oh, yeah, up near Philadelphia, yeah.
Amazing school. I still give them money. I don't give UT any money. I give Bucks County Community College tons of money.
They changed your life in a sense, right? They put you on a trajectory.
Yeah. So when I decided to transfer, I had traveled the country and I had spent time in Austin. It was awesome, I was young.
Right.
And it was really fun. So I looked at UT and it just so happened they had the best American Studies program in the country. And UT was really cheap at that time. I'm a lot older than I look. And so I came down here and established residency and, got in really cheap, got really lucky. Because after the year after I got in, the prices went way up. So, American Studies, liked it, was supposed to be an academic. Went back to Philadelphia to be a PhD in history at Temple University. Didn't like it, decided I wanted to work with people. Came back to Austin to get a social work degree. And, I started doing clinical social work, which is counseling, but I quickly gravitated towards the administrative leadership stuff and macro social work. So then I got a job in advocacy.
Where was that?
TECEC, the Texas Early Childhood Education Coalition. Did that for several years. And then I became a bureaucrat for the state of Texas around early childhood education policy.
But you had a whole career around early education, didn't you? Yeah,
like 10 years.
I mean, that was the bulk of your career before going to the foundation.
That's all I knew.
Yeah.
Yeah, professionally.
Yeah.
And I was getting I still love early childhood. I still think it's amazing, but I was getting a little burned out on it.
Yeah.
I was saying the same thing over and over again.
And people weren't necessarily. I mean, it seems like early childhood is one of those areas that a lot of people pay attention to, but not enough are paying attention to.
Yeah, it's always
it's
popular,
changing.
but we don't. It's kind of hard to get those home runs.
It's not popular enough.
Yeah.
And so, what made you decide? Now, I have to have this rich career in early education. What made you decide? Oh, I'm going to switch. And I'm going to go to philanthropy.
Well, I was working out at the YMCA, and somebody came out to me that I hadn't seen in a long time, and was like, "How you doing?" And said, I think you should interview for this job. And I was like, okay. So I interviewed. Really.
For Rockwell, was your first time you'd interviewed for a philanthropy job?
Yep.
Wow.
So it pays to exercise.
Yeah.
But I just I just went on the interview basically because I wanted to see what was going on. I'd never really thought about working in philanthropy. But after talking to them, I was like, wow, this could be really neat. There's a lot of issues I don't know about. They're comfortable with the fact that, they think my skills are transferable.
Yeah.
So, I put my hat in the ring and really tried to take it seriously and, it worked out. Actually, I think I was their second choice.
Oh.
I think the first person took another job offer. But it was,
and
it was
about,
really serendipitous.
Tell me about sort of your level of joy in your job now compared to, because you loved working at the Children's Learning Institute.
Yeah. I did.
And tell me about your level of joy now working in the world of philanthropy, because so many people that are practitioners often think, man, if I were just giving money away, man, that'd be a perfect job.
Yeah. Well, the reality is 80% of the job is saying no. So you're not giving money away. You're telling people no all the time. It's really not that pleasant.
You've told me no.
Yeah. And it's a hard thing to do, I know, emotionally it's difficult because I'm a bleeding heart. I'm a master social worker. I got into it because I care about people. And, I see all these problems in the world and I would love to write everybody a check. And so a lot of times I have to go hear these horrible stories and know that we have money and I just can't do it because strategically that's not what we're doing. So that's difficult. On the good side of it though, it's one of those places where you really can take time to develop ideas. You really have a lot of freedom in sort of as a program officer, at least at our foundation, they give us a lot of freedom to, influence them. They want to know our opinion. They want to know what we think. They set the strategic goals, but they want to know how we think we should put the puzzle pieces together. So that's really empowering and nice. I was talking with you earlier, I really like the idea that we're geography based.
Yeah.
And we focus on Houston, so it's new for me because I'm used to thinking about things through a statewide lens. Now I'm thinking it through a regional lens or city lens. That's fascinating, but it also comes with frustrations in the sense that I miss helping to participate on policies that affected 500,000 kids. That was really, so now I'm thinking about 50 kids, 60 kids at times, or a problem population of 400.
I want to ask you, when you talk to your brethren that are at other foundations, you guys talk about sometimes sort of big mistakes that nonprofits make, in sort of trying to talk to philanthropies, trying to talk to foundations, trying to talk to the Rockwell Fund?
Yes and no. I mean, the one thing that is interesting is that, they're all just so different.
Yeah.
They all have different expectations, which has got to be really frustrating for development people.
Yeah.
They all just have different cultures. And sometimes we do, but I think there's a level of professionalism that
You're not making fun.
We try not to. At least I don't feel comfortable saying oh, you won't believe what this person did.
Yeah.
So I don't actually hear too much of that. But you do hear the positive stuff. One thing is for certain that I learned a lot about a lot of programs because other program officers at other places are super psyched about them. You know what I mean? You gotta. Don, I think this is right up your alley. I think it'd be a good fit. And that's something that, if you have a good relationship with a program officer and they believe in you, that's something you can ask them to do. Could you introduce me to some other funders? And it's not inappropriate.
Yeah. Talk about, though, even from your perspective, interesting mistakes that people should know, as a learning opportunity. What are some mistakes that people make?
Well, some of the chapters of the book, I kind of mentioned those. Another interesting mistake is kind of, I guess, one thing that I personally don't like, and this again, I think the theme here is really know who you're working with.
Yeah.
I don't like going to a service nonprofit and having clients paraded out in front of me. In fact, I find that unethical.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think that everybody who does it is an unethical person, but I think the practice is unethical. And I have, on many occasions, I can't believe how many times this has happened. I have specifically said in the email, I'm coming on a site visit.
Yeah.
Just want to let you know.
Don't bring the clients
Please
out.
do not have any clients there. That doesn't affect our decision, and we don't like it, in so many words. And sure enough, the client's still there.
Still
I'm like, Don, we just really thought you needed to hear this. And I'm like, I don't know how I could be more clear, because this is not good, I just don't, as a social worker, that would be against the code of ethics.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't feel okay to me. So that's a big mistake. I think that really the mistake is just not hearing. Sometimes you got to break from your pitch. Sometimes you got to be flexible. You can't just say this is how we raise money and we're sticking to it.
Tell me about when you're meeting with you're going to an organization. I know some people just sort of parade out the director of development rather than program staff. Talk a little bit about that.
It's not important to me who I talk to, title-wise.
Yeah.
What's important to me is what they know about the program.
Yeah.
I do find it frustrating if I'm talking to a development person that doesn't really have knowledge of the program. If they didn't take the time to bring a program person who could talk about it, then I'm like, what are we doing? I'll name drop a little bit. Nicole at the permanent supportive housing place, New Hope Housing.
Yeah.
She's a development person.
Yeah.
And she is so knowledgeable about, I'd rather talk to her than Joy, nothing against Joy, who's the CEO, but I think Nicole actually knows more about the day-to-day and the programmatic questions that I have.
Yeah.
So it's really about the level of knowledge of that person. I don't find it an insult to talk to a program coordinator if the program coordinator is the one who can really tell me the most about the program.
When you look around at the landscape of nonprofits, you've mentioned New Hope, sort of little, medium-sized nonprofits that you think, wow, they're doing a pretty good job. Are a couple that come to mind?
Yeah. One I'm really happy and proud of is the Fifth Ward in Richmond program.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Who's the CEO there now?
Charles Savage.
Yeah, Charles
has been there for a while.
Yeah.
But they went through some rough times. The funding. Oh, I'm so sorry. The funding dried up. I think there was an illness. So things just kind of. And to their credit, they really
They do some extraordinary work,
They
though,
do
don't
great work, and they were able to, we actually funded them to talk to a strategic consultant, and a lot of times not everybody wants to listen to a good one will give you some difficult information. And they listened to them, and they really enacted a lot of changes, and they're like bounced back. They got contracts with the city. They're expanding the My Brother's Keeper program has been really effective for them. So I'm really happy to see how they're doing.
Do you have another one that comes to mind that you really like?
Sure. Let me think. Well, I'm really excited about what's going on with the Fqhcs in Houston right now.
The federally qualified health clinics?
Yes, sorry. Thank you for clarifying that. Although we're not really sure where it's going to go federally, locally they've been like really coming together, really at the urging of the Episcopal Health Foundation and other health funders to kind of work together to smart solutions. So hiring psychiatrists together, collaborating to get their benefits packages, together so they can pull down better health benefits for their employees, and other kind of like smart, not really like sexy things, but like smart things that are about sustainability is really exciting to hear.
One of the things we talked about last week was the importance, and we've talked about this before, the importance of leadership. When you visit with a nonprofit, how important is it that they have a good leader in terms of you guys deciding you're going to fund something? Or can a good idea be enough?
I think both. We've invested in people we have programs right now that I think other foundations would probably say too risky. But we really believe in that person. Or we really believe in that idea. We have one of each. But what we try to be is transparent about the risk that we feel like we're taking. So we're, Jane Doe, like due diligence wise, this is not what we'd like to see, but we really think your program is good. So part of the conditions of our funding are going to be about getting you there. Are you okay with that? So it's not critical. It helps. I mean, you want greatness at every level. So a great leader is a great leader. But at the same time, we're not over-invested in quote unquote great leadership, because leadership's different.
And it changes.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. We've invested in programs because of how great the leader is, and you know what? Somebody snatched them up in the programs. So it's not a science all the time. It's a judgment call. It's worked out for us, I think, in the 4 years that I've been there. I think we have had one where it was kind of a disappointment, but in the most part, it's been a judgment call, and it's worked out well.
So let's go to the Twitterverse. We have lots of questions that are coming in. R.B. Carter has one. You mentioned saying no to nonprofit organizations. How do you say no when it comes to funding?
That's a great question. The easiest way is via email. So we have a you
ever text a breakup? No.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah,
I have, but that's one organization I've been close with. So the first step in our process is a letter of inquiry, which is common. And that's kind of where most of your no's are coming. And that's like a less formal process or a less intimate process where they're kind of testing the waters and we're saying no. So that just happens through email, and I don't actually do that. Our grants administrator.
And that's a good thing, right? I mean, you probably hate it if someone does a huge proposal without they've done all that work and they're not going to get the money.
Yeah, we do.
Indeed, just a LOI, a letter of inquiry, would have made a big difference.
Exactly. I mean, part of the reason why we have this strategy is because we don't want to waste your time. And I know how hard these applications are to do and the volume that some folks have to do. So we really encourage them doing it. If you get past the LOI process, you got a pretty good chance of getting funded by the Rockwell Fund. That's how we are. And it's like almost like I switch from a gatekeeper to a coach in a way. But at the same time, I don't make the final call. And so I've had to tell people no. And I always call. Not everybody does. I call every yes and I call every no. And I just try to get it over as soon as possible. Like, I'm really sorry, but.
Once they get past the letter of inquiry, let's say you said, hey, apply. What, of the 100 that apply, how many are applying and how many are getting no's?
Once they get past the letter of inquiry, I would say 85 to 90% are getting.
Pretty high.
Yeah, but we're really scrutinizing on that thing. Like I'll go to several site visits if we think it's interesting, before we even consider inviting the application.
Rocio Moreno wants to know, what is the most valuable lesson you learned when you started working philanthropy that you could have not learned not being or elsewhere?
Well, Scott, most of my jobs in nonprofits are things
Yeah.
where I've had to ask people for money, and I think it's just so when you're like in a nonprofit, especially when you're young, you think that these philanthropy folks are just different than you. I don't know. At least I did. I just thought that there was more knowledge, or I don't know. But to be honest, I mean, not all of us know that much, and we're just like trying to do our best too. I guess, so I would say, don't build them up too much. They're just people too, and they have a goal in mind too. I don't know if that answers her question. But.
Caroline Sharpless wants to know, middle school dropouts, how did that become an area?
Oh, so glad she asked. Middle school is like pre-K.
Yeah.
I mean, there's these 2 points in the educational trajectory.
Big predictor, isn't it?
Big predictors. So pre-K, we got like early learning, early reading scores can tell us a lot about where our kids going and what, the conditions of the family. And similarly, 7th, 8th, if your attendance, grades, and behavior are at certain thresholds in 9th grade, statistically, we can almost predict that you're not going to finish school.
Right.
And like, there's research out of the University of Chicago that suggests that even like a 93% attendance rate puts you in a high-risk category in 9th grade. So we love it because...
Don't pass Algebra 1, you're probably not going to graduate. Yeah.
It's possible, yeah. So the reason why it's... Because of that power, we were very interested in it, but we were also interested, as a pretty stable old foundation in Houston, we noticed that there wasn't a lot of funders who wanted to fund in that space.
That's right.
There's more now, because out-of-school times become more catchy. But back when they made this decision, there weren't a lot of funders who were pushing that, and we thought it was, valuable.
Okay, very good. Someone just gave a little quote here, giving bucks the big bucks in Bucks County. So just thought that was interesting. Jacob Cole wants to know, what are some of the best ways or strategies when it comes to generating funds for nonprofits, that you have seen?
Having a great product is probably the best. So being good at what you do, but it's not always enough, because some of the biggest predictor of how much money you raise is how much money you put into fundraising, sadly. The biggest fundraisers in the whole field are universities.
Yeah.
And if you look at their budgets, they put in more money than any of it. So I'm contradicting myself.
Universities, big hospitals, the
Right.
big museums. They're like the fundraising machines, aren't they?
They are. And if you look at their departments, they're like really scientific. It's like NASA up there.
Yeah.
So something to keep in mind, it's unlikely that you're ever going to break a funding threshold as an organization if you're trying to do it on the side. So if you think if your executive director is your only fundraiser, there's going to be a limit to the amount of fundraising you can do. It's sad, but that's kind of like the world we live in. You have to really think about what funding is appropriate for the program you do. You may want to hire a development director that is a really amazing writer, because you're really going to be applying for federal grants, state grants, that kind of thing. Or you might want to hire somebody who's more the relationship type, because you're looking at private, personal donors and stuff like that. I don't know. Does that answer?
Yeah, that helps.
Okay.
Yeah. Trevin Oliver wants to know, when you're making decisions, funding decisions, are metrics more important for you, or do you trust your gut a little bit more?
Gut's important, and metrics are important, but I don't know. I think metrics are problematic from a...
Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think they're really problematic on the scale that I work on, okay? So hear me out. We have this outcomes-focused thing, but we're all kind of... Aren't we all just kind of pretending that this word outcomes means what we think it means? We're not conducting research at these programs, right? And so we cannot say definitively that because I did X, it led to Y in this child, or because I didn't do X, it led to Y in this child.
Yeah.
And so asking these nonprofits to kind of assert themselves as saying like definitive outcomes is really unfair. We ask for outcomes, but we just use it like as a discussion point. It's not a make or break thing. What I really want to know is, are the strategies, especially if you're a service provider, are the strategies you're employing evidence-based? Because I know that data has gone through the rigor of academic research.
Right.
And I'm going to hope that if you can show me that your strategies are evidence-based, then I'm going to look at, how well you implement these strategies. Is your organization running well? Are you serving a diverse demographic? Are you actually serving the kids that the research indicates are affected by the problem? That's another, we run into that a lot in middle school dropout prevention. So metrics aren't huge for me. Even if you tell me, if you tell me you have a 90% success rate, 95% success rate, I'm probably not going to believe you. Or you're not serving the people who are really affected by the problem. Mm-hmm. Because if it were that easy, we wouldn't really have a problem.
Yeah.
So.
Do you get frustrated sometimes, though, in terms of best practices and where there are good metrics, and you wonder why aren't more people using some of those metrics? I mean, I get frustrated.
Oh yeah, it drives me nuts. I get it. I think it's.
Of course, if we all use metrics and best practices, early education would be funded a lot more.
Exactly. Yeah. But I get why organizations have a tough time. It's like, how big is the rudder and how big is the ship? Like, if you're a large, huge national organization, you've been doing things for one way, and then boom, there's a way we should do it better. There's going to be some implementation lag there, and there's going to be some resistance, and that's a very difficult thing to change. What's more frustrating is when new organizations pop up, new ideas, and they're counter-indicated. And I see that all the time. Like I do a lot of reading, so I try to stay current about like what is supposed to work and what isn't supposed to work. So it does really drive me nuts when I hear new nonprofits that maybe not effective, but the stuff is counter-indicated.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about the role of trustees, and not just at your place, but other foundations. I mean, because there are plenty of foundations where the grant or the program officer is really the most important decision-making piece. But there are some others, maybe smaller, but some bigger, maybe Brown, where the trustees
family is really involved.
Are quite involved.
Yeah, like Powell Foundation,
yeah,
very involved family. Brown Foundation, very involved. And even non-family foundations like Houston Endowment, their trustees are very influential. Again, I don't have much insight into it because I'd have never like.
So do your trustees do some influence? Are they trying to be influenced?
They're very, very influenced strategically. Our trustees are like really involved. They read everything. I'm not just saying that because they're my bosses. They read everything.
They're the best trustees in the world.
They're the best. But they read everything and they're very knowledgeable about their subjects. And so strategically, they're very involved. But to their credit, they trust the people that they've hired.
Yeah.
And I will say they often take our recommendation. Not to say that they haven't shut me down many times. They have, but it's a balance there. I can't really speak to the other foundations because I've never really. I'm not involved that heavily with them.
Afshan Malik wants to know. She's very interested in this idea of relationship development. How different is it doing relationship development with a program officer as opposed to a private donor? Well, and you've talked a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a private donor because I'm not very wealthy. But just if you think about it, if you just empathize with like what we're talking about, I mean, a private donor is looking to most likely make the world a better place, but also it's a vanity move. And I'm not using the word vanity pejoratively, but it's about their identity and what they want to do with themselves. So they need a relationship to do that. They actually need guidance, on where they should spend their money, what would best fit with them. And like the universities really maximize that. I mean, they try to find out what's important to that donor, and that's why university giving is so successful in a way, because there's so many different things that the donor can throw money into. So I think relationship building is huge with individual donors, especially like big donors. But even when you distill it down to the small giving, your social media, your emails and stuff, that is a relationship building process in and of itself. And a lot of times, if it's not done right, you'll see the funding drop off. With larger foundations are more strategic, Kellogg Foundation, Houston Endowment, that's not really going to go a long way. And they don't really have time to build a relationship with you. So it really is about awareness and who you're dealing with. Read the website. I know that sounds really rudimentary, But a lot of people don't. You'd be surprised. Just read it and find out what they're looking for, and then present it.
I once had a discussion with a program officer at Kellogg, the Kellogg Foundation. And,
JP?
Yeah. And he talked about how he used dating as an analogy. He says, like, we usually take a long time, in terms of, we start out, we're just holding hands, and then we go, and he used that analogy on, and it just felt a little awkward. But that analogy of sort of taking it sometimes, many times you don't want to take it slow. You want money right away, but it's sort of a long process, right?
Yeah.
Or it can be.
Yeah, it is. It can be, and it can not be. But I think Amanda from the Simmons Foundation, she always says a lot, like, I know it's hard to do, but try not to think about the money right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I know that sounds counterintuitive, but you really can't build the appropriate relationship or communicate effectively if you're kind of distracted by, like, how much money. And we can sense it. Most of us are sensitive. Like, I can tell when I'm talking to someone and they're really focused on this guy means whether or not we're going to get money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And not really on what they're doing and what their work is.
Stacy McKenzie wants to know, in particular with Rockwell, what's the best, if someone's coming to you for the very first time, what's the best way to approach you?
Well,
is it just sending you an email, sending you a note?
I'm totally open to people calling me and asking me, I read your website. I think we're a good fit. What do you think? Can we talk about it? That's totally okay.
Yeah.
You can do the same thing via email. You can go straight to the LOI. You can do that. And we will read it, and we will seriously consider it, and we will call if we have questions, So, I mean, those two practices are fine. If I'm speaking at something and you want to come up and pitch the thing to me after the speaking event, I don't think that's a good strategy.
That happens a lot.
Happens all the time. It's not. And
if I ever moderate a panel of foundation people, it's like the room is full, and then they just all come up.
And I feel like I sound cocky or something when I say that. Like, I understand the job that they have to do. I do, but I can just tell you that it's not going to work with the type of foundation that I'm in.
Yeah. Luis Ramos wants to know, what are some of the strategic planning processes in supporting populations of special needs that you guys go through? When you think about underrepresented populations in Houston, you guys including that in your strategic plan, and how does that work?
We don't really have a strategic plan per se. We have an outline strategy and areas that we want to do, and then it's kind of my job to offer up sub-strategies on how to get that done. Special needs, I don't know if he's talking about people with intellectual disabilities, but let's just say, but I think it applies to all the population. So, one obvious reality with philanthropy is that it's completely out of pace with the demographics of our region. I'm white, I'm an old white guy. Most people in philanthropy, most of the trustees are old white guys. Most of the staff are women, but usually white women, and there's a huge connection to wealth. Our board is probably the most ethnically and racially diverse board in Houston in terms of a foundation, but that's not common. So that's an appropriate question for foundations to be asking, and even for the nonprofits to be asking, like, how do you know? And it's a big discussion right now. Should we be convening groups of community stakeholders for advisement? Should we be giving away funds that are basically like community advised funds? I don't have the perfect answer. What we're doing right now is really trying to engage with communities and really trying to be open and let people be critical of us. Like, what did you think that we could have done better? Where are our blind spots? But I think it's still something we're formulating, and I think we're at a big inflection point in philanthropy with respect to kind of awareness and openness to reality that philanthropy is extremely removed from.
Do you sometimes, I mean, you're being quite insightful here. Do you sometimes wonder if philanthropy pats itself on the back more than they deserve sometimes?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the nature of money and power.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, right.
You know, I always, when I was on the other side, I always really liked the philanthropy folks who you never really saw.
Yeah.
You know, who just like, you know, they're mostly introverts. I know I'm not an introvert, but they were like mostly introverts, and they just really believed in what you're doing. They're like, how can I help?
Yeah.
But I think that in general is a sense of the world we live in.
Yeah.
You know, where there's money and power, other things like competence get overlooked. And it just so happens that, you know, sometimes there is that. But then there's nonprofits that are like that.
Oh, absolutely.
That are just really good at fundraising and aren't really good at what they do.
Yeah.
You know?
You don't have to name names.
I'm not.
Yeah.
There's none in Houston like that. But you know, I think it's the world we live in, and I think, so the answer to your question is yes.
Yeah.
But there are a lot that aren't like that. There are a lot that really want to make the world a better place and really actually even sometimes want help knowing what the best appropriate role for them is.
Yeah. And it's not so much, I think, on some of these nonprofits that raise a lot of money. It's not so much they're doing a bad job. It's just not as big a job as probably needs to be done, right? It's
Perhaps,
sort of,
yeah.
I think it's sort of interesting. Milton Guardado wants to know, how do you hold the nonprofits that you fund accountable?
Well, kind of back to what we were talking about outcomes and stuff. We're not a real, in quotes, accountability place. We want to know what your problems are. We want to make sure that you're really trying to implement best practice. We want to know if you made progress on if you told us about problems and we helped you fund to get rid of some of those barriers. Mm-hmm. We want to know that you did it.
Yeah.
We want to know that you're moving towards getting better. But we really, really reluctant to say, okay, you know, you put 200 youth served and it says here that you only did 110. So, you know, expect half the money last year. I'm not suggesting that's what this person is, but there are some foundations that are like that. That's not really how we do it. So I would say, in a nutshell, how we hold them accountable is like having real conversations, ensuring that they're being authentic, you know, really trying to understand what the problems are, and if they've got the will to address the problems.
Trevon Oliver wants to know, are there no's that you've regretted?
That's a great question.
Yeah, isn't it?
I mean, I doubt it. No, I'm just kidding. You know, I will say I was really late to the party on this one program. So they eventually got a yes, but I was in the no in the beginning. And I did kind of regret that. I mean, does he want me to name names or?
Well, if it's appropriate, I mean, it's not.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, Pro Unitas, you ever heard of them?
Oh, yeah, sure, yeah. They
really
do nice work.
Fascinating model, really cool.
But they seemed pretty small when they started,
I mean,
right? It was like leadership driven in the sense.
Yeah. And I was like, just didn't pull the trigger. Mm-hmm. And I actually really wish I could have helped him in that early time because we could have gave him a big gift. So that probably would have accelerated a little bit.
But they're doing well.
They're doing great.
Yeah.
They're doing great. But, you know, I did regret it at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Let me find one other good question before we go to the fun question. Once you've, well, here's an interesting one. So when you supported an organization, Charlotte Garner has this question. When you've supported an organization, how much do you want to keep supporting them? I mean, you know, how much do you feel like, hey, they're one of ours?
Yeah. We're kind of like that. We don't have a lot of turnover. We really. In fact, if you've currently funded by us, like you don't have to go through the LOI process again. You automatically have the right to reapply. So we don't have a lot of turnover. We really hold on to them. It's difficult though because we also like to be innovative at Rockwell. Like we're a first funder often. Mm-hmm. Like that's why I kind of regret the Pro Unitas thing because we could have been a first funder. So it doesn't give us a lot of financial flexibility because we hold on to funders. So sometimes we'll say we're going to fund you for 3 years, but then we're going to take a year off from you, and you'll have to reapply. We're not even going to consider one for a year.
And a number of foundations do that, right? Mm-hmm. This whole idea of 3, 4, 5 years, and then take a year off.
Yeah. And that's just so we don't become complacent too.
Yeah.
It's frustrating from the nonprofit's perspective. I understand that, but we also can't. We can get in a rut too if we're just all cutting checks for the same people every year. I don't really need to be there, you know. So.
Good. Okay, a few fun questions. Your favorite restaurant in town, Don?
My favorite restaurant is Fqhcs.
Wow. Why do you like Hugo's? That's like a stone's throw from my house, by the way.
It's just so awesome. I mean, you like really. I don't think you could get that food anywhere else in the United States.
Yeah.
Everybody who comes to visit me here, I take them there. I make them pay because it's really expensive.
Yeah.
But it's a really great restaurant. It's my favorite.
That brunch is something else, though, right?
Yeah, I've never done the brunch.
So you get to try so many
I've
different
tried.
types of foods.
It's always sold out.
Is it really?
I've never been able to do it.
Yeah.
But I've gone there for dinner many times. Love it.
Is there a favorite little place in Houston that not enough people know about that you like, and park, venue?
Okay, so there's a place in my neighborhood, which is Westwood. It's called Super La Mexicana. And it's like a little tiny bodega / deli / bakery / just place where people hang out. And they have really, really great food. Like
Super
really
La
great.
Mexicana.
Super La Mexicana, yeah.
Wow, that's
It's
your
on
little hidden secret.
West Belfort and Stella Link. Tortas. They have amazing tortas.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. And then when they make the Don Titcombe story in Hollywood, who's going to play you?
Oh, I don't know. Probably whoever's the most handsome actor at the time.
Sort of like George Clooney-esque
Yeah, something
sort
like
of
that.
actor.
No, I'm just kidding. I don't remember reading that one on there.
Yeah, it's right there, number 14.
I believe it's on there. I just don't remember reading it. Clooney will work. Or probably, actually, who's that guy who, Giamatti? Paul
Giamatti?
I could see him playing me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Paul
he's a little
Giamatti.
neurotic. I'm neurotic.
Yeah. There you go.
work.
Are you neurotic?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah,
Can't tell.
So I could see Russell Crowe maybe also, right?
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know about that.
Okay. You're putting personality into
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Very good. Don, thank you so much for
this is
being
fun.
here in the class
Very cool.
and talking to us. That's it for the Leadership Studio. And you guys keep up the great work. We'll see you next time here in the Nonprofit Studio.